Hey my fellow friendsets, it's Chris from Chuckhead Gaming, and here's my review for Demeo, developed and published by Resolution Games. Demeo releases May 6th, 2021 for the Quest, Quest 2, and Rift S with cross-buy, but is also available on Steam VR. Price is listed as $30 US, and of course that depends on your region. Perfectly titled, Demeo, a Latin word for to descend, is an RPG dungeon crawler that takes everything that works from traditional game-top gameplay, ditches what bogs them down, and then injects it with some VR magic. Guys, I freaking loved this game, and I can't wait to tell you why. As always, guys, if you like this video, please hit that like button. It not only helps out my channel, but VR gaming as a whole. And if you'd like to see more VR content from me, please consider subscribing. And for video updates, make sure you hit that bell icon. And one more thing, I have another channel with Ryan from the VR Grid. It's called the Virtual Boys Podcast, and on it we take deep dives into the topics that matter the most to VR gamers. So please consider checking that out as well. Alright, enough whoring myself, let's kick things off with a look at graphics. Being a game that is attempting to bring the feeling of sitting at a table playing a board game, Demeo in the gameplay footage isn't likely to wow you with its visual prowess, as the very nature of the experience it is selling is at its core a smaller, more relaxed and intimate gaming experience. But trust me when I say Demeo is a bit of a sleeper. For once in the VR headset, things feel quite different as you rotate and zoom in, getting up front and personal with characters that once were mere pieces on a game board and now stand life-size in your face. Thankfully, hero characters and the multitude of enemy designs hold up to scrutiny even up close, with the former animated slightly, giving the impression of breathing while it's waiting its turn. Overall sharpness of the game is where Quest headsets will see a bit of a visual drop from the PC version, but regardless, Demeo has an incredibly polished look to it and an art style that, while not genre-defining, feels like comfort food for this type of game, with simple yet lovingly sculpted characters and dungeons. The game board itself often remains shrouded in shadows to hide its randomly generated layouts, playing with lighting to create a mystery for players to explore that simply wouldn't be possible in a traditional tabletop game. A point that Demeo tastefully reinforces time and time again with animated attacks and effects that feel organic to the gameplay and board, adding to the experience rather than going too big and breaking the immersion of truly playing a tabletop game, something that Demeo works so hard to create in the first place. Some may feel this is a missed opportunity to really flex the effects here, and they might be right, but personally I thought Resolution Games found a nice balance here, something which the game also has to contend with in regards to the representation of real players in the game. When playing with friends, you are identified by a simple mask and your hands in order to have the presence of real players at a board without being too intrusive as you all navigate in and out around the board, an approach that doesn't always work, but mostly does. Beyond the table, you find yourself surrounded by a simple 80s inspired basement. It's not the most detailed and fails to live up to the VR standards set by, say, the Pixel Rip series, but it really didn't need to, as the board is the star here, and it nonetheless creates a relaxed background that fosters a relaxing and intimate experience in VR. All in all, Demeo visually is a class act with polished visuals that look great either on PC or the Quest, making for a magical type of experience that is truly a joy to play inside. Sound is up next.
Ooh, the Elven Queen I did not see coming. Oh, I could be in trouble here. I'm down. Yep. No, that's the Elven King's the baddie. HP. She's invulnerable!
For a turn.
Well, I'm down, so I need to be revived.
Ready to hunt.
Again, I'm going to talk about that balancing act Demeo does of creating a captivating VR experience that immerses and surrounds you, yet also retains the simple joys of playing a tabletop RPG. Sound-wise, Demeo absolutely crushes this. From the quiet sound of the rolling die to the satisfying sound of revealing the deck in your hand, Demeo revels in the small details that truly ground you to the whole experience. Tabletop intricacies aside, the board will often come alive with the sounds of special attacks and character taunts, but knows when to pull back, not having hero characters and enemy combatants constantly spouting off and cluttering the board with noise. Instead, the game is very intentional with its use of sound, often keeping it tightly focused to an individual move, allowing for that space to be filled with the strategizing and laughter of your friends. Speaking of which, yes, the game offers in-game chat and it worked flawlessly. That being said, when Demeo does decide to speak up, it does so with some quality voice acting across the board and an array of appropriate attack sounds. An argument could surely be made for a slightly generic quality to the various taunts and attacks on display here, and yes, Resolution Games has certainly played it safe here, but again, this is comfort food on the sound side of things, and as such, while characters may not entertain with very creative dialogue, they certainly feel genuine. And speaking of comfort food, I want to talk about the music here, as it is incredible. Understated to be sure, but always in the background, Demeo has a wonderful orchestral score that ebbs and flows like waves on the ocean and creates a feeling of magical wonder that just immediately put me in a certain place. Seriously, I was waiting for some friends to join me a few days ago, and I just sat there, eyes closed, taking it all in. Now, yes, the music all kind of blends together, coming off as one endless track, but what the composer here has created is simply wonderful, and it expertly fills in the back of the sound mix without ever coming off as repetitive or irritating, and never once did I think about going into the settings and turning it down or off, something I oddly found myself doing a lot these days. From the opening moments of the game's commentated tutorial to the dungeon master's telling of the story, Demeo is brilliantly crafted sound design for a game of this style, and like its visuals, finds the perfect balance of the tabletop experience and the glitz and glam that video games can provide, rarely flexing, but also managing to stick with you. And that brings us to gameplay. Admittedly, I'm no expert on Dungeons & Dragons, but I have played my share of D&D light-inspired tabletop RPGs of the dungeon crawl variety, so jumping into Demeo felt like hanging with an old friend. Demeo has no intentions of reinventing the genre here, but instead looks to play it safe in its first outing and delivering on all the fundamentals of the genre and little else. As it turns out, that's just fine, as Demeo nails these fundamentals. Players can choose to play Demeo either solo, through the skirmish mode, or online, with both playing fairly similar due to the game's PvE gameplay that pitches hero characters against the game, which here acts as essentially the game's dungeon master. Though it should be noted that the Steam version is to shortly be updated with the ability for players to join in playing the game flat. Something I'm actually really psyched about, considering my wife does not VR well, and then she'll be able to join me regardless. Solo players looking to take on the campaign alone are asked to choose a leader out of the 4 available classes, which include the very traditional Archer, Mage, Knight, and Thief class. The remaining 3 are still included in your team of 4, however certain decisions such as purchasing cards between levels falls on the team leader. Outside of this though, solo players will control all 4 hero characters turn by turn, same as the online campaign. Consequently, players playing in co-op matches online choose a single character to control, but in a surprising turn, if you end up in an online team of less than 4, you simply jump in short-handed and the game scales accordingly. However, even with scaling in effect, having less than 4 players and an unbalanced team makeup certainly made for a greater challenge. Speaking of which, yes, players in a team can certainly double up on multiple classes, but beware, as I found the game balancing of having the heavy soldier, the ranged archer, and the stealthy thief, and the support class in the mage made for a much stronger team, as each class varies greatly in their strengths and weaknesses and complemented each other very well. Also worth mentioning is that matchmaking seems to work flawlessly here, with rooms being able to be public or private, with private rooms simply getting a room code that can be shared with invitees. Like I said though, regardless of whether you're playing solo or on a team, the single campaign available at launch plays out much the same, as you must clear 3 stages, each consisting of a procedurally generated board. Covered in shadows, only the rooms your characters occupy can be seen, with the exception of markers across the map highlighting points of interest that when closed in on will reveal either a card drop for each teammate or a team healing tower. As you would expect, each player takes their turn, in which they get a base count of 2 moves, coming in the form of movement on the board or playing an attack card. Certain cards can be played without counting as a move, and extra moves can be awarded, but you get the idea. Each attack card played requires the roll of a 12-sided die, which will dictate whether you hit, miss, or luck out and get a critical hit, doubling your damage. With a miss resulting in some unexpected and sometimes hilarious consequences, as wild shots have a habit of hitting teammates or at times accidental wins. After each teammate has had their turn, the enemy forces play all their pieces on the board, and the cycle repeats. Expectedly straightforward, yes, but also easy to pick up for players new to the genre. Where Demeo finds its depth and replay value is not only in the differences across character classes, which there certainly is, but more in the variety of cards that each class can attain and use in a given game, making for some drastically different approaches to combat depending on what you have in your hand and when and how you play them. Some matches, my team and I had players teleporting all over the map, jumping in and out of combat, grabbing the key, and moving on. While other times we simply tanked through the map, getting every piece of treasure we could find, often resulting in epic showdowns with ballistas and cannon turrets joining the fight, while we barricaded entries and poisoned hallways. I've probably got over 15 hours in the game, and I've beat the queen more than a few times, but I still find myself wanting to jump in and try again, and much of this comes down to the game's ability to really mix up enemy placements and attack patterns, while absolutely nailing the game's balance across all 4 hero classes and the enemies themselves. Story here in Demeo is certainly on the light side of things, and the goal is simple. Find the enemy that has the gate key, find said gate, and escape to the next zone. This culminates in a third board and a final and rather epic battle with the Rat Queen herself. However, getting to the end isn't easy, and players will want to make sure they explore the boards, picking up much needed treasure that will be used to purchase additional and much needed cards to beef up their character deck. Purchases are made at a store between stages and contain a constantly changing selection of cards that range in prices. You can only hold 10 cards though, so I appreciated the ability to also sell back cards I didn't want to hold on to. Cards can vary across classes, and there are a lot of different choices, which made for some really fun deck building and strategizing amongst my teammates. The game is played with 2 motion controllers, and not only plays incredibly well this way, but manages to actually improve on the traditional tabletop experience in a few key areas. Cards are holstered on your left hand and made for very easy handling, with simply facing your palm up, bringing up your deck. On your right hand, you'll see a bracelet which will tell you information on your teammates, enemies, and also how many turns you have left. In fact, one of my favorite aspects of playing this style of game in VR is the breadth of information I could see at all times without having to check in with other players or keep notes, making for a much more streamlined and accessible experience for all involved. Navigating the board itself is also amazing here in VR, as you can easily turn, tilt, and zoom in on the board to get a perfect view of the action without interrupting anything other players may have going on. And despite this often resulting in some absolutely epic VR moments, was also game-changing. I mean, I literally played a match fully reclined in a chair while I tilted the board completely on its side, so I was still able to look down on it. And finally, Demeo doesn't have any character progression in the game for the individual classes, a point which I understand for balancing purposes, but would have enjoyed being explored on the single-player side of things. That being said, it does offer an overarching progression system in which XP that you earn by playing and winning games rewards you by unlocking cosmetic perks in the form of character skins, avatar masks, and custom dice. And finally, that brings us to fun factor, my final review. Straight up, I love this game, and I want to play more right now. And that's coming from someone who doesn't often play tabletop games and rarely plays social games in general due to my introverted tendencies. I loved tackling the game solo, as I got to control all the characters and personally strategize each character's deck and movements, which really scratched my love of strategy games and inventory management. Shockingly, yes, my introverted ass also loved jumping in with friends, as I loved the vibe of just sitting around a board strategizing as a team, which give the game a whole different flavor. Demeo is a polished premium VR experience and certainly sees Resolution Games reach new heights in the VR games industry, as they have truly delivered something special here. In fact, Demeo is likely to be a contender for VR Game of the Year for me, held back only by the fact that as it currently exists, it's a little light on content with only 1 campaign and 4 character classes to play with. That being said, with the already announced Book 2 coming this summer and bringing with it new characters, cards, and environments, content is incoming, with Resolution promising more free content moving forward. So, really, my issue here is a very temporary one. As you guys know, I hate numbered review scores and instead rate games on a scale of buy it, burn it, or wait on it, along with some details on who this might appeal to more. This would normally not be a game I would get excited about, but playing the hidden VR gem Table of Tales on the PSVR had definitely piqued my interest in what VR could bring to this style of game. Unfortunately, this isn't planned to come to the PSVR this time, but if you have access to a Quest or a PC headset, this is in my opinion a definite buy, and with promised future content drops, an absolute steal at $30. Now, I totally get this won't be everyone's jam, as this is a slower, more strategic game with matches that can stretch beyond the 2-hour mark. But guys, this is a great game and exactly what we need right now to bring people back together virtually in VR. And I strongly recommend you consider picking this up even if you have the slightest interest in this style of gameplay. This is sure to make some top 10 VR game lists this year and might just move some headsets too. This is VR done right, guys, so enjoy. Anyways, guys, that's it for me. Thanks for supporting the channel. If you like this video, please hit that like button. And if you'd like to see more VR content from me, please consider subscribing, guys. As always, I will catch you on my next video.